Every realtor on the planet hits a lull in their business. It's just gonna happen. And it's usually not because of marketing changes or maybe even motivation or maybe even a broken process or CRM. It's because there's this neglected quiet section. It's called the quiet middle, and this is the nurture phase. Today's episode zooms in on what I call that second stage of the agent cycle of life that I have been bringing you through all the way back to, I believe, episode 87 when I rolled this out. But even if you're not on the and focused on the nurture phase because you kind of got caught up in the last few episodes in lead generation, even if you're not here yet, meaning your focus isn't all here, this episode is meant to ensure that when the lead generation starts to take hold in your business, when you start to get motivation, when you start to get traction, this is how you show up now. Like if you learn how to show up now, will determine how long that dry spell may or may not last. So everybody, welcome back to another re-education experience. The phase today most agents sleep on until it's too late. This podcast is where I try to coach my absolute best rather than just talk about real estate with a few guests. So I'm your host, Darren Langille, and we're continuing on that series to building that roadmap of sustainability so that every 4 phases eventually over time starts to see a little version of mastery. And that's how we create a sustainable real estate and scalable business over time. So if you've been following along, as I kind of hinted at, last week we did talk about the seed phase, which was the art of lead generation. That's all about trying to create the conversations. And then after that one, I talked about the top 15 lead gen plays the top producers are doing right now to give you a focus to your energy that when you're excited to say, I know it's my problem, but I want you to know where the winners are winning. And that was why we talked about last week's top 15. If you are hearing this and you missed that one, that's a great one. So go back. It's a heavy one. There's a lot of depth and we covered a lot. But today we're going to move from seed to the next phase in the cycle, and that was nurture. Nurture is the quietest phase though, really. It's the one that doesn't get trained a much. We don't get into this business knowing what it's like, how we're supposed to do this, how long we're supposed to do it, and all those things. So it makes sense that it's this quiet step tends to get missed, but it can also make a massive difference in our business. This is, like I said, this is the one most agents sleep on until it's too late. It's time to talk about it. I kind of call this make or break bridge between the seed conversation and the client relationship. Make or break bridge between seed conversations and eventual clients. All right, let's get into this. If we're going to get honest on things, oftentimes for established agents, it's actually not a lead volume problem we have in our business. The leads, they do though, have a problem, and that's that they have a memory issue. And what do I mean by this? Their leads, the conversations, the seeds they planted, simply just ... forgot about you. A name comes in, a form gets filled out, a DM drops, a handshake is made in person, but then we kind of go silent. We act like crickets. We don't follow up. We don't make the phone call. We don't drop another voicemail. We don't show back up. We don't reply to the email. Or if we do, it's a one and done. What happens next in our minds? It's like, oh, they're ghosting me. They're not responding. You think they chose somebody else. You tell yourself you need more leads again. So instead of doing this and focusing here, we rip back to say, okay, rubberneck, back to lead generation. You tell yourself you need more leads, but in reality, you just remember you weren't remembered. And this is why I wanted to spend the time in this episode. This episode matters because we're currently in the nurture phase, because at some point, every good business depends on it. If you solve lead generation, even if it's for one person, nurturing comes into play. If you've got lead generation on lock, nurturing really ratchets it up for you, right? Because you can plant 100 seeds, but if they don't get nurtured, don't expect too much in your harvest, if we go back to my terminology. So let's define things. in the nurture phase. So nurture is that bridge between the initial awareness, that initial conversation, and then their eventual decision. So let me just show this. Awareness, where you spent the time to plant the seeds. But then there's this gap, right? If we call this that one side, there's a gap where before they become a client. And the nurture process is us building a bridge between the two. It's pretty simple when you think about it in that way. It's when they're ready, they'll become clients, if you're remembered. We're going to talk about this in two distinct phases, right? The first one is going to be the active, I call it nurture flow. And I'll give you a 4-part sequence for that. The second one is going to be the long-term nurture system. Long-term nurture system. All right, so that's how we'll talk about this, and that's how I'll navigate you guys through this episode. All right, so let's get into some of the how so that we can get you on your way into something else. We'll start with, like I said, was part number 1. This is that 4-step process. I call this the active phase, right? This is where, honestly, most agents truly do drop the ball, right? You had the conversation, a name, a form, right? But now what? Here is the simple flow that I want you to really think about. Let's start it right here. I call it obtain. And don't worry, I'm going to explain every one of these. And then obtain flows to the chase. Then it flows a little further, goes to something I call qualify. And then we finally roll it to the final phase of the nurture, which is called convert. All right? So obtain, chase, qualify, convert. These are the 4-part phases that we're going to unpack here today. So step number 1, obtain. What do I mean by this? Well, we can't follow up with anybody if you don't have a way to follow up. Agreed? A name alone isn't a lead. A smile at an open house and a wave means nothing without contact info. So simply obtain. It's going to be different for every lead gen source that you pick. Sometimes we obtain the contact info based on how we lead generate. A form is filled out, right? Somebody sends you an email. You have a way to reach out, but sometimes we don't. So if you're in the lead gen buckets where you're already obtaining the info, great, you're 1/4 of the way through the nurture phase. But if you're not, simply put, the obtain process is just, we need one of the following. We need a phone number, potentially, or we need an email, or we need a social handle, or we need an address, or at the very least, friends, we need to remember a name, okay? Because a name with some context, we can go back and find these people later because of the good old World Wide Web. So here's a simple real world tip. If you're thinking through, how am I doing with my nurture? Maybe I'm having good conversations, but I'm not obtaining enough contact records. You think, where am I? Which lead source and which would be the easiest? But a simple real world tip, no matter where you're at, if you're not in a automatic lead gen with contact info source, lead source, at an event, in your phone, keep like in your notes, says people to follow up with, okay? Later, then you would go and track them down on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on TikTok, and then you just send them a personal note, right? Hey, it was great to meet you at the Stampede event, right? It was great to meet you at the charity gala. It was great to meet you at the community so-and-so. We'd love to just stay in touch. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'll connect with you later. Just something super simple. It's not salesy. It's just about being intentional. So I want you to think about phase 1 of 4 is obtaining. And then ask yourself, how are you doing in obtaining the contact information and or minimum names so that you can go back to them later? Because I know at a networking event, you're not handing out business cards, right? You're not writing down phone numbers, but you probably met 6 or 7 people. Sally Greenfield, lawyer at PwC, in my phone. All I can do is find them later, right? Johnny Rocket, dad in the community. That's it, right? Get it and go find, okay? So I think we've nailed this one. Obtain. The second phase, friends, I said is the chase. So what do I mean by this? And the reason I also break this down, because there is a part to your nurture process that you may or may not even have, right? You're not even thinking of it as a process, that is the one linchpin that is the thing causing you harm, meaning not moving things forward in your business. Maybe it's, shoot, I just don't get enough contact names and I don't take it out of the open houses. I network like a banshee, but I never take it beyond the events, right? Whatever that might be, right? So the chase. What we know is this. You don't technically have a lead, period, until it becomes a way to have a two-way conversation. A lead isn't a lead if I've just had a convo. The lead is only becoming a technical lead if we can reach back to them. And that's why I said obtain that info. So this is about consistent, timely, value-based follow-up, right? It could be via text if that's how you get it. It could be via email if that's what you've got. It could be via DMs if you connect on social. It could be via your phone calls, just to get a response. The chase is, I had the convo, now I got to go chase into a two-way conversation. Because if you do a lot of attempts, people make a lot of dials, circle prospects, drop letters, but those are all one way, right? We might have a lead because we can contact them, but until it's a two-way, I wouldn't say the chase is over yet, where they've responded and now you're going back and forth, right? I want you to be aggressive in your cadence, meaning the attempts you make after you've had that first touch, but I don't want it to be in your messaging. So aggressive cadence, but not an aggressive messaging, because that is kind of like asking to be married when you just went on your first date, where you just jump into real estate, you're spewing every little opportunity. Let's be humans first, right? We need to be present while their memory of you is fresh, because a lot of us don't need more people in our lives. So as they meet you somehow, you're going to be easily forgotten. So be present while their memory is fresh of you, and again, of them of you, or of you of them as well, right? Hey, what could you say? You meet Johnny at a community event. Hey, I saw this listing pop up down the street from you. You said you were on Waverly Drive. It reminded me of the conversation we had at the soccer field. I wanted to send it your way because I just thought it would be of value, right? Simple things if you need to do to create that curiosity need, all right? So we got obtain, then we got chase, okay? So is chase your problem? Are you finding that it's, oh yeah, I'm creating leads, I'm getting contacts, but I'm not actively chasing aggressively, but not with aggressive messaging? Is it the messaging? And you could realize if I'm on the other end, there's a reason why Johnny's not responding, because it feels like you're puking real estate at them. All right? Find ways of value. The third phase, friends, is qualify. Okay? And I'll unpack this here, right? This is where I say we don't just talk, but we learn, right? You've got their attention. They've responded to you. Now our job is to earn their trust. And what happens when you earn their trust, right? This is where, when agents don't get to this point, it's because their messaging stays shallow. The curiosity turns to real estate puke again. But when we earn their trust, you can learn more about them. Just like with a friendship, when you earn trust with somebody, they're going to be more vulnerable with you. They're going to tell you things that you didn't know when you first met them at the dinner party, right? This is what happens when a two-way dialogue happens that is not pushy, and you start to generate that. You're earning the trust, and you're going to earn the ability to learn. Okay, so this, you're going to find out things like, well, are they looking for real estate? Are they looking short-term, long-term? Do they have a motivation? Do they have a timeline? Why now? What's missing in their current real estate? What's holding them back from purchasing? Have they gone through the mortgage applications, timelines, proximity, life changes, right? If you don't think I have to earn their trust by learning more about them, you're going to get into this perpetual cycle where you've got leads and leads and leads, but everything stays shallow, right? You will be in this texting mode, you'll be on this email back and forth mode, and it just stays super service level. And nobody in this real estate world wants that. And they're not going to stay surface level with the agents or the people that bring them value, right? So rapport building plus problem solving will equal true nurture that converts. Okay? So I want you to think about that. So qualify. If you find out that you're not getting any more learned info from the people in your database over time, you have a qualify problem. right? All right. So that's number 3. Number 4 now, convert, right? The conversion phase. Some leads convert today. As we all know, they kind of fall out of thin air and boom, there they go, right? But most convert someday. I want you to think about that. Some leads come now, right? Some leads convert to clients today, but most, the big bulk of them, right? So you got the little being some, you got the bigger group being most, will convert someday. But that's where you need your system, right? So at this point, if we walk us through this simple process, you've chased them down, right? You've built some trust. Now they either become one of 2 things. They either hire us, which is great, and they're in consideration, or they slide into the majority into your long-term bucket, right? And that's that big warm hug that we've talked about, right? This is where you're hugging on them long-term. This is how we go through the convert. So if we've learned enough and qualify, we either convert them at a pretty good percentage into clients, and that's the harvest, that's working down the client experience, or they slide into the long-term nurture bucket, which is the second part of our system. So, all right, you guys follow me so far? So if we are now transitioning them, in the most of them, into this long-term nurture bucket, well, what is that? That is part 2, right? Part 2 is the long-term nurture system, right? This is more of your passive phase, right? Where the other one was fairly not passive, but active. Once the initial conversation is alive, you now need a system to put them into, right? And this is where, again, I refer back to this so often, but the success triangle, right? Introduced, I think it was episode 97, right? And this is where you're covering all portions of the 3 corners, and you're putting on a really big warm hug around social, digital, and traditional. And that's the beauty. When you build your success triangle in your long-term nurture bucket for your database, it becomes the same exact system for anybody that's gone through your nurture process, doesn't convert to a client, but they just roll them into the big warm hug. So it's the same business plan that I pushed you so hard in building into your every realtor's strategy. So again, I'm not going to go deep here, but a fully developed nurture long-term plan hits those 3 corners, right? The digital corner is the monthly personal emails, using your CRM and creating some automation and adding your notes so that you have real contacts when you contact these folks. It could be doing video check-ins, safe search alerts, right? Those are the digital formats that you could build into your company, into your system, right? Your March newsletter, for instance, or your December market update isn't just market stats. Remember, if it's in your big warm hug, this is the people that are most, meaning not buying or selling. It has to be something that when you're nurturing them brings them value, but they're not looking to buy or sell. Instead of the stat headline, the market update, which everybody uses, how about this? 3 things I'd tell my brother if he were buying a home this spring, right? Something you're speaking to one person, something real and tangible. All right. So the second part of it, of course, is your social bucket, friends, which we've talked about. Consistently posting at some cadence. Remember, all these people have converted in the nurture now to long-term, right? It's back to your story replies, it's to the DMs that you share, it's to the comments that you make on their post to show you care, right? It's tagging them if it matters because it's connected to them, right? Showing personal and professional wins. All the social buckets that we have is we're not going to go into today, right? All right, the third one is, again, traditionally, right? The in-person, non-website, non-social. This is where if they are a nurture client, become to the long-term bucket, we need a way to round out the triangle. And it might take a bit of time to kind of learn this, but if you have addresses, you're going to want to get them into the quarterly handwritten notes that you do. Or if you find out that they live at XYZ Street, but you never sold it, you can go into your MLS, you can find out when their anniversary dates, and you can throw them into your home anniversary date reminders. And why not give them a happy home anniversary, even though you didn't sell the home to them 6 years ago? That would be pretty cool, right? If you're doing pop-bys, right? If you're doing things in the neighborhood, if you're doing a holiday event, if you're doing anything like that, these folks in the nurture bucket, roll them in where you can once you've learned enough about them, right? Personal invitations to client events. They don't have to be your clients yet to be invited to the events. Show them you care, right? So Those are the real things. So let me give you a couple, as I often do, real world examples beyond real estate about kind of how this stuff out. Like, again, back to Amazon. I'm going to bring them up way too much. Cart abandoned emails, right? It's not just Amazon that does this, but when you've gone to a website, you put the things in your cart, and all these sophisticated marketers now, what are they doing? They're retargeting you. They're showing you stuff on social, but they're also showing up, hey, you forgot this in your cart. And then sometimes they're even offering discounts, right? It's that cart abandoned sequence that they don't just hope we're going to come back. They force our value back in to remind you that you were once interested. And that's the same thing that we do when it's like you go through the nurture process, you do the obtain, the chase, the qualify, you find out they're just converting to the long-term bucket. And our job is to remind them that they were interested in our conversations, that you got that far with them, you built that rapport, and that's what we're doing, right? With my wife and I, Peloton, right? When Peloton came out, it was, again, reminders. You know, when the app came out, it was like notifications that came out, like what your favorite sprint that you did was back on, right? They would show there's so much relationship built with the Peloton, but the instructors that Peloton has, everybody kind of fell in love with their favorites, and they would show behind the scenes content of like what the Peloton instructors are doing, and you would develop these relationships, and that's kind of like nurtured culture, not just sales. And that's how things grow and get remembered, and like in Peloton's case, sales grow, right? This is something that I think for us, if we believe we've been in the business long enough and you're scratching your head around how you can improve, you can see if you just wrap your head around where within this process am I falling, it's going to be pretty apparent for you, right? Here's a real world example. I had Sarah, I'll call her Sarah, as a client in the US, generating a lot of leads, but didn't turn a ton into deals. When we looked at the nurture system and we went obtain, qualify, chase, qualify, and convert, there was no consistent chase process at all. Once she got the lead, it was random efforts at random times. She did have a CRM, but the reality, there was no flow to it. It was like, okay, if it comes in, if I remember, off I go, right? There's no personal touches, there's no follow-ups, right? So all we had to do was install this obtain to convert pipeline, which means when I get a lead in lead source X, these are the 4 things I will do. And that's as simple as these things, as, you know, strategic operating systems, right? It could be a portion of a digital and a traditional rhythm, if that's what the info you have. It could be a social and a digital. It could be all 3. Depends on what contact info you have. You just build a simple checklist around that system, right? It's not hard to imagine if somebody just cranked up a simple system and followed it like a good soldier, when lead gen isn't the problem, but the system is not in practice, so you can see results pretty quickly. And that's exactly what this agent did. So a couple common mistakes to avoid if we can. Common mistakes. Number 1 would be relying on one modality. I know that sounds like a fancy word, but it's like one part of the triangle, right? Just email because that's how I got it. Didn't go find them on social, connect, and made a personal touch point and bring them into this social journey that we all get the chance to share about what we're doing. So common mistake number 1 in our nurture, relying on the only modality for which we got them in the first place. Use today's tech to go find them in another way and throw another angle at your communication. The other one would be generic messaging. If we have a big warm hug that is very simplified and generic, do you think the communications via email, the mass emails and the mass texts are going to feel, are they going to build memory and trust if they're full generic automated newsletters? Hell no. Everybody that I hear says I've got a newsletter and they're paying a system to push it out. I'm switching them to something very simple, plain language, feels like I'm writing it to you. So generic messaging will not work. The automated emails you put out in your drip campaigns from an online lead source, the conversion rates on those are virtually 0. It's the specific, targeted, direct message that relates to their scenario and that has curiosity baked in. All right. That's one up. Number 3 is stopping after the first or second no response. Again, the data shows that we need, so it's stopping after 1 or 2 no's, right? Nurturing needs to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 touches, likely when the leads are colder, before you start to see true qualification, where you're getting two-way dialogues back and forth and you have that ability to learn and earn their trust, right? So it's the leads, guys, don't disappear, right? It's just you stop showing up properly with the right messaging to make sure that there's something to come back to. So the question for you now is, what would happen if you just took 15 minutes a day to follow up with the people already in your world? What if you rolled that for the balance of the year? Do you believe the nurture process would generate more conversions for you? 100%. How many deals are sitting in your inbox right now just waiting for that second message, maybe the third, fourth, or fifth? Heck, what if you ran the course to that 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th touch? I believe you will see a massive reward. What if you could stop starting from scratch each month trying to lead generate and instead build a business that, well, it carries momentum forward, which is rolling the dice forward with the conversations and the contacts you've already built a little bit of the qualify process with. This is what a strong nurture process does. This is how you build a pipeline that doesn't rely just on hype or constantly relying on new leads, new people, new connections. I really wish agents spent more time here in the nurture phase. So to wrap this up, I don't believe you need more leads, you guys. Maybe a few of you do. You need fewer forgotten ones, the ones that forgot you and you forgot to go off and chase. So your next step, as always, is jump into the worksheet that's involved in the Roam space. I always develop a worksheet and a takeaway. Please jump into that if you want to just break down this 4 steps, right? All 4 steps are mapped out. All you got to do is figure it out and then plug the holes with the triangle, the success triangle that I keep talking about. And this is a real system for you to implement. So it's not a lead problem, it's a memory problem. Let's make sure they remember you. Thanks again for listening to the Re-Education Experience podcast. In the weeks to come, we're going to round out the series. So stay tuned, and I value you every single time.